Um, Thank you very much, dear friends, dear colleagues. I'm very appreciated for the opportunity to be in your wonderful university, New Delhi University. As I know, the history of your university, initially it uh, was devoted with Russian-Indian friendships and special cultural and political projects. Um, I'm first time in India. I dream to visit your country. I think since my childhood, for example, when I was a small boy, I read beautiful books of Indian fairy stories, and especially, this uh, Buddhist story about elephant, and not only this story. During my scientific career, I visited a lot of countries in the West and in the East. But I stress again, it's my first visit in India, and I'm very glad to be in your beautiful country. I am very appreciated also for this opportunity to prepare our course about BRICS countries. I think that it's a very interesting idea. First of all, of course, it's a course in economics, but it's interdisciplinary course. We are going to talk not only about economy of our countries, but also about politics and about sociology, anthropology, feminology of our countries. Of course, it's only introduction to phenomena of BRICS, and during my course, I'm going to devote my lecture first of all to Russia, and explain some, from my point of view, main features of my country. And after that, during each next lecture, especially to observe Russian-Brazilian BRICS relations, Chinese-Brazilian BRICS relations, of course, Indian Russian BRICS relations, and finally talk about this phenomenon, coexistence now between so-called old BRICS countries and new BRICS countries. Interesting that the idea of BRIC was introduced by West economist Jim O'Neill, who researched new markets in global economy, and who paid attention to the growth of economy of the most biggest countries of so-called global South and Russia, India, China, and Brazil. And initially, it was only one chapter from newest course of political economy of period of globalization of our world in the end of 1990s, in the beginning of 21st century. Observing the chronology of emerging of idea of BRICS countries, we should stress that first it was some only idea from economics. So a phenomenon of so-called emerging markets. So firstly, it was only idea of some step of finalization, marketization of new big countries. But as a result, we see that a few years later, it was organized first summit leaders of BRIC countries, and the first summit was in Russia, in Yekaterinburg. Yekaterinburg is capital of Ural region in the center of Russia. And after that, we can find new chapter in BRIC story. It's not only story about market economies in global context and biggest economies. It's also story about geopolitics. we see that after this summit, it's some evolution, political evolution of four big countries. Next step, the participation of South Africa in BRIC Club, and after that, the name of this organization was BRICS. And growth of different organization of BRICS on the level of foreign minister, cultural program, political, educational program among our countries, and finally, not finally, but newest step is the growth of BRIC countries. Now it's BRICS is consists of from 10 countries. And I think using this metaphor about elephant, I think in epistemological sense, BRICS is very strange elephant who is bigger and bigger time by time, and we have so many opinions about BRIC, how it's possible to construct this big elephant, reminding about the internal and external contradictions between our countries. And of course, sometimes we can find a lot of political discussions about contradictions between so-called G7 and BRICS organization. I should remind that G7 was created in 1973 year. It was the time of so-called oil crisis. It was the time for economic crisis for Western world, first of all. And after that, it was realized idea the main West countries, about this club of these main West countries. And by the way, if you remember, Russia was invited to be also the member of G7. And during about 10 years, this organization had name G8, but not G7. After some political troubles, you see now the growth of some competition between G7 and between BRIC countries. And especially, I think about the role, about the place of Russia in this story. Famous British writer Herbert Wells joked that Russians sometimes think about their country that Russia is the most east country among West countries. In fact, Russia is the most West among East countries. And in our previous history during 20th century and 21st century, we can find this paradox of coexistence West and East features in history, in modernity of Russia. I mean, not only some geographical features of Russia, when one part of Russia in European part and other in Asia, so it's also Eurasia country. I mean that Russia has a lot of regional, cultural, political features of great BRIC countries like India, like China, combining different nationalities, different cultures, different regions. And also, it's interesting to think, to reflect about some our mutual problems of our big countries. My teacher, Professor Shanin, he is a famous British sociologist, one of the founder of so-called peasant studies. He was specialist in history Russia, and he wrote two-volume books with title Russia as a Developing Countries. His hypothesis was about the problem for Russia in the beginning of 20th century, that Russia had this first problem, the first questions for developing countries in the beginning of 20th century, what to do with our identity, how to save own political sovereignty. I should remind that in the beginning of 20th century, Russia lost two wars, Russia-Japanese wars and the First World War II, and it was the country of emerging development of marketization also, and Russia had in the beginning of 20th century a real economic success, but also the growth of internal economic political contradictions. And it was huge gap between brilliant Russian political elites and so-called common people, peasant people, because Russia had the growth of industry, but also the fundament, the base of big peasant countries. And in that period, main questions for political leaders of different directions for Russia was what to do with so-called working question, national question, agrarian question, and finally the question of political sovereignty in that period. And in that period, many political elites worried about future for Russia as colonial countries, like it was with in some cases with India, Iran, and China. We know the historical answer of that period. It was a radical leftist decision that was suggested by Bolsheviks party, and after that it was some attempt to create an alternative way to development, and this was era of Soviet Union, era with own contradictions of development, and now we have in 1990s another step of alternative radical decisions. After collapse the Soviet Union, Russia tried to use some radical liberal attempt to transform their country. So when I think about Russia and India, Russia and China, I think again about some basic similarities between our countries. Again, we can see the strong diversity, polarization between our relatively rich and relatively poor regions, about diversities between well-developed branch of economy and backward branches of economy. My main specialization, rural sociology, agrarian economy. And during my course, I will present special examples from rural regions of Russia, China, and Brazil. And we will try also to find some similarities and diversities on the regional level of our countries. I think that phenomenon of BRICS is developing constantly, and during our course I'm going also to learn among us, my dear colleagues, and especially for me it's very dear, very interesting Indian experience. So I hope we will organize also very productive discussions among about development phenomenon of BRICS countries. So thank you again, my dear friends.
Thank you very much, Professor Nikulin, for introducing the course and also telling us something about your teaching plan, what you are going to do in the next 5 days. And we will have many other presentations. Each of them will not necessarily be dealing with BRICS as a multilateral organization. Many of them will be dealing with more fundamental issues like Dhruv Rana's epistemology of something. Well, cognitive justice. Similarly, of course, we requested my colleague, Professor Varun Sahani, to speak more about BRICS. First and foremost, because he is from a center which deals with such topics and subjects, and also because he has been a specialist on Brazil, a country which otherwise will not be spoken about during this meeting. But whether you talk about Brazil or India or Russia, these countries represent very specific and unique experiment. Professor Nikulin was talking about how the Soviet Union, I mean, they came out with an alternative model of organizing human affairs, an alternative socio-economic model. Similarly, the other countries, be it India or Brazil, have also had their own very unique and distinct experiments with political, economic, and social organization. I'm very sure some of these will come out in the days to follow. Today, I would like to invite some of the colleagues, at least one from School of International Studies, and if I may, one from School of Social Sciences, from CPS, to come and say something about the program, but also how they see BRICS or how they conceptualize maybe multilateralism or talk of alternatives, whether it is an alternative or something which complements the existing institutions. That is a matter for debate. I would like to first, I would like to mention some other colleagues who joined late. Dr. Amir Ali, I'm very happy. We welcome you. I'm happy that my colleague, younger colleague, Dr. Renu Sen, I already mentioned Dr. Govind Inakia, that they have joined us. I hope and believe that some of you will be here during the... Amitabh Singh aage kya? All right, he's sitting right at the back. Dr. Amitabh Singh, maybe I can request you to come to the front row. Professor Varun Sahani, I hope I can take the liberty of calling you, inviting you, followed by Professor Shefali Jha. It's not my area. That's all right. I gave you, I said that we are discussing so many things. No, we also have you. So, for example, I will not be speaking about BRICS. I will be, if you can come, I will be speaking about understanding Russia, perspectives from India. So we will not be discussing BRICS alone. We will be discussing alternatives. Professor Varun Sahani. बिल्कुल कराएंगे.
Professor Pandey has a long and distinguished reputation for doing things like this. That's why we love him so much.
Huh?
What I've just told you we love you so much. I mean, what's the ill repute out there? And I'm so glad that thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be a part of this, because, it's non-obvious. This is the first time I'm actually, it's Professor Nikunin's first visit to India. It's my first visit to the Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies in the 30 years I've been on this faculty. So, it's, new beginnings at any stage in one's life and career is a good thing. I'm actually trying very hard, Sanjay ji, to say something today that's not going to actually be repeated when you've tasked me 3 days from now to speak for 45 minutes with a formal PowerPoint presentation, because that would be really an injustice if I had to essentially, speak right now about what I'm going to be saying again there. So let me just maybe say two things that I will not really be talking about on Thursday. And if I will be, only en passant, I won't really be focusing on it. So I suppose, one interesting question that we should always ask is, if the template of organizing power at the interstate level has been, for at least the last 3 centuries, essentially sovereign territoriality. That really is the single governing principle that governs literally everything. It's literally in some ways the only rule. Every principle we try to derive, but the principle of non-interference that you invoked, the principle of, even the notion of human rights is in opposition to, this core idea of sovereign territoriality. That it's a system of states when everything is done. There are lots of non-state actors, corporations and communities and non-state actors of all types, but ultimately it is a system of states. But these are not just states. These are states that are sovereign and that are territorial. Right? We map every square inch of territory. And territory here is not just terrestrial. Territory here includes the oceans. There is such a concept as the territorial sea. The territory includes the entire air columns over your land and sea territories. Right till you get to the stratosphere. That is part of your sovereign territory. Right? Now, in this kind of a system, you could ask, why do states come together? I mean, if sovereign territoriality is the name of the game, then why do states come together? And I would suggest to you, my friends, that there are only 3 reasons for states to ever come together. It is either to aggregate power, or to solve problems, or to build community, or some combination of these 3. There is really no 4th reason for states to come together. And here we're not really talking about size of state. The original 4 BRIC countries and then South Africa are all large states. But it doesn't really matter state size out here. That would apply just as much when, what were called the crucial states after the decline of the British Empire in the Persian/Arabian Gulf. All of these crucial states that came together to create this remarkable sovereign territorial entity we today call the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. Again, out there, it was about coming together. Why do states come together? And that also, by the way, will give us a clue to why states break up, which in the context of the old Soviet Union is in fact one of the key questions, and really theoretically and conceptually we need to think about, quite apart from the history of it and all the rest of it, which is all very important too, of course. Now, so what are the BRICS then? If we are agreed that it's really either about power aggregation or it's about problem solving or about community building, so what are the BRICS all about? in my writings, what I have suggested is that, in fact, power aggregation also takes, in a way, two forms. So, you can aggregate power for status quoist reasons, or you could aggregate power for revisionist reasons. So an example of a power aggregation for status quoist reasons, I can just to give you an example that, it would be what's called the G4. I don't know whether any of you in the Russian Central Asian universe have heard of the G4 because it's, in a way, so far removed. G4 is a group of 4 countries. It's not the Quad, by the way. That's a different G4. The G4 are 4 countries. I'm sure some of you know about this, which is Germany, Japan. Exactly. Germany, Japan, Brazil, and India. 2 defeated states were part of the Axis powers at the time of the last systemic war, the Second World War. And the 2 states that have emerged as significant powers in the period after the Second World War. So the G4 gambit, these 4 states arguing collectively that we need more permanent seats in the UN Security Council with veto powers, etc., is a classic example of what I would call power aggregation for status quoist reasons. So here what the real demand is more seats at the table, right? The Coffee Club is the opposition to the G4. The Coffee Club consists of the countries most likely to be bilaterally affected if the G4 were to ever actually attain their political objectives. So, if Germany says it wishes to be on it, Italy says, why not us? And Brazil says yes, Argentina says, why not us? When Japan says, South Korea says, why not us? And obviously, we all know which country says, why not us? When India says it should be a part of the G4. So when diplomats from Pakistan and Argentina and South Korea and Italy, etc., get together over cups of coffee, what they're really doing in the Coffee Club is making sure whatever else happens in terms of UN reform, these 4 states do not become permanent members of the Security Council. So this is all ultimately, if you think about it, a status quoist game. BRICS, I would suggest to you, is the other type of power aggregation. This is revisionist power aggregation. Here, the whole point is not so much to have seats at the table as much as it is to construct an entirely new table. So, when we think about the BRICS, one useful way to think about it is that these are a group of states that have come together. And that's where the paradoxes and the contradictions emerge. Because, I can give you examples of India, having done sort of coming together with other countries for reasons of problem solving and also for reasons of community building. I won't belabor all of that with you because you've given me just 10 minutes.
15.
I still will not belabor that point. Students should occasionally go and pick up some of the stuff we write and read it also, right? That would be nice. So the thing about the BRICS is, why did these countries come together? And I think the answer to that are really 2 words: global governance. Now, in the last 2 decades, global governance has risen from obscurity to become a seminal idea in international relations. I mean, you actually look at the literature, 2.5 decades ago, there was almost no mention of global governance. And please understand again, for our students from CPS, that governance in the domestic context really is about quality of government. When you think about governance in domestic political context, you're really talking about quality of government, right? Because what's the difference between international politics and domestic politics? International politics is politics without government. So you have politics, but you do not have any form of legitimized authority relations. And because you do not have legitimized authority relations, you have politics. So everything that you would recognize, as being political domestically exists, that has its cognate outside the boundaries of sovereign territorial states in terms of their mutual relations, for sure. But there's no government there. There are no legitimized authority relations, which means that there's no government over the governments of the world. It means also that when states come together, they come together because they decide it's in their interest to do so. So entire corpus of of rules and regulations and norms that we call international law is the result of the willing cooperation of states to create something, as indeed is international organization. So in the international context then, what global governance therefore is about how power operates in an interdependent environment in the absence of government. That's what global governance is. So it is about power. Let's never forget that. Power is everything. Power is alpha, power is omega. Everything else we discuss ultimately is about power. Of course, an economist will stand here and tell you everything is about the economy. So, please understand, we are speaking to some extent from our disciplinary positions. A historian will stand and tell you everything is about history. And of course, each of them from their disciplinary perspectives is right. But this is not just about power. It's about power in an interdependent environment. What I do has an impact upon you and vice versa. And therefore, you simply cannot ignore me. You simply cannot ignore me because what I will do will impact on you in some way. That's what interdependence is. So interdependence is not necessarily cooperation. Let's be very clear about this. Interdependence is just interdependence. Pakistan and India are deeply interdependent, except that interdependence is rooted in a very zero-sum security perception of the other. But it's still interdependence. So how do you do that if there is no government, if there are no legitimized authority relations? That's what global governance is about. Maybe I'm thinking about this. I'll include one slide in my presentation on this, because I do think it's kind of important, and it does sort of locate the BRICS in some ways. Maybe then I should stop here, because if I go and say more about global governance, then what's the need for the slide? So
We leave it to you.
yeah, I think I've said enough, right?
Continue.
These are all sort of extempore remarks based on nothing, no script or anything. So
But those are
I'm a university professor. I've been doing this for 30 years. I can go on for another 45 minutes without a problem. I'm sure Professor Nikunin can. I'm sure all of us can. So I think I should just be disciplined about it. Thank you very much for dragging me to the podium. And I will, as they say, put a vishram to my to my discourse at this stage.
Thank you
Sure.
very much. Thank you very much, Professor Sahni. Your name was mentioned inadvertently at the beginning by me along with Professor Mattu. But see how Providence, whosoever, you talked about power, you talked about power aggregation. Professor Mattu also said, apart from realists, he mentioned social constructivist, and they would say that power is what policymakers think power is, or power is, it depends on perceptions, it depends on the milieu, the environment, the worldview. So the BRICS countries do not, of course they do, represent an alternative view about power arrangement, globally and internationally, but they also have an alternative worldview. They believe that what the collective West considers to be valuable in the authoritative allocation of values terms, valuable, may not be valuable for us. So it's a very complex and intricate subject about power and about alternatives. Trump has decided to walk out of WHO and the Paris Climate Arrangement Agreement. For him, health and maybe environment do not matter, or he has a different conception of these. We would say we have our own understanding, we have our own priorities, we have our own alternative understanding and worldview. Professor Shefali Jha. आइए. It may be alternative, it may be complementary.
Your dean is at fault here because we were at the same time in this university. What can I say? First of all, of course, I'd like to, appreciate this initiative. I think it's a grand initiative. I always think when I'm in JNU that there are so many places here where we study political science in different ways. The School of International Studies, the Center for Political Studies, the Center for Law and Governance. So, and apart from that, JNU is such a political space, in terms of student politics, etc. So, for political science, I think it's like a grand place. So, in terms of this course, all I can say is that listening to the professor from Russia, listening to my colleagues from the Center for Political Studies and the School of International Studies, I think this is an interesting idea that these 4 countries, the initial 4 countries, big countries, as you said, sir, that they share a number of empirical features, big countries with a lot of cultural diversity, with similar, let's say, economic problems. So when I'm thinking of that, and I'm thinking as a political, from my discipline of political theory and political philosophy, that when we look at some empirical attributes and we try to use those empirical attributes to go forward in a certain direction, what we need is to combine these empirical attributes with certain political principles. So I would be interested to know that what are these political principles that we can devise or construct to move these countries together to build, as was said before, like a different table. So it's obviously not an easy task, and my limited understanding of the relations between these countries, how is that going to happen, or how much of that has happened, etc. And having visited just one city in one of these countries, having gone to Beijing just once with my colleague Amir here, I can see the similarities, but I can also, see the problems in the way of devising those principles. So I hope that, with this course, some of that perhaps might become a little clearer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shefali. I would like to, I won't say I can tell you, but I would like to inform you maybe that there are so many things, and your colleague is one example of that, in which India and Russia can share their experiences with each other to build a better understanding. And I can quote the president of Russia, who visited India for the first time within months of his assuming office. That was in October 2000, first week of October. That was the only time he addressed a joint session of the Indian Parliament. He visited India since then more than a dozen times, but hasn't addressed a joint session. And in that address, he speaks about India and Russia as the two most diverse and pluralistic countries and societies in the world. He also says that perhaps, he talks about his own country, and he says that perhaps Russia can learn something about managing and accommodating diversity. I can say, as a student of Russia, that there are so many things that perhaps India can learn in terms of how to manage diversity, how to manage federal polity, and so many other things. I can, and perhaps I will be talking about some of these during my presentation tomorrow or in the subsequent days. We will have occasion to discuss how comparative methods and comparing different social or political systems who have some similarities and some differences may provide a better understanding of each of the two, and may be overall of the larger picture. With this, we almost come to a formal end of today's inaugural program. I will just request my colleague, Dr. Sudhir, to propose a vote of thanks. Is that?
Before thanking all of you, I have a couple of announcements to make. Firstly, this course is being live telecasted, as you can see, and you can send the link to your friends and colleagues who can see it in other parts of the country or world. Secondly, for the record of the participants, it is mandatory to attend all the lectures as per the GYAN guidelines. So there will be an attendance sheet which would be circulated, and I would request you to sign that sheet as and when you come. All this record is uploaded, and then finally on the basis of that, the certificates are issued. So just for your information. As a vote of thank, there are a lot of people whom I must thank in the beginning. I must also inform that Vice Chancellor of JNU, Professor Shanti Shri Pandit, she heads the section of GYAN which looks after the social science courses. And first of all, very many thanks to her for supporting this proposal, and also facilitating Professor Nikulin's visa for India. I must also thank Professor Satyabrat Patnaik, who heads the GYAN cell in JNU, who has been instrumental in managing all these affairs. He has been an amazing coordinator who is always available round the clock as and when we had any issue. We have missing Professor Kaushal Kumar Sharma, who is the Dean School of Social Sciences. There was some urgent meeting which came up, and therefore he had to leave, though he said that he will try to make it, but unfortunately he couldn't. But we thank him in his absence. He has been quite supportive in facilitating all these bookings and everything. I must thank Professor Mattu, who, despite his busy schedule, he made it to the program, and for those kind words. Thanks to both the chairpersons, Center for Political Studies and Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies. Both the chairpersons, we have a long relationship. We have been good friends, and I'm so happy to see both of them here sharing the dais. Thanks to the team, Gyan team, which has been helping us in managing. Thanks to the team who is managing the live telecasting and other things. Many thanks to all the researchers who have joined us here. And of course, thanks to all the colleagues who made it. Without their presence, I think it wouldn't have been possible. They have been a great inspiration. I must say, Professor Shefali Jha and I always meet when my international relations class gets over and her class begins, and we always share what I have been teaching and what she's going to teach. So we exchange a lot of ideas, and I think they are great learning experience. So thank you so much. In fact, I'm grateful Professor Pandey could actually coerce Shefali to speak something. I wouldn't have been able to do that. So great to hear you, and thank you, Professor Sani, for your words. Thank you, Professor Nikulin, again for being with us, and we look forward to listening to you. You all have programs. As you can see, the program is devised from 2:30 to 6 o'clock, and we have, on all the days, we have lectures from Professor Nikulin, followed by a question, answer, and discussion. And then we will have another guest speaker who would be talking about other relevant issue, and we have a range of speakers whom we have tried to incorporate. I must thank Gyan Global Initiative in Academic Networking, who have actually supported this entire exercise. Objective of Gyan is actually to encourage Indian scholars to engage with scholars outside India, and this is how a special financial support is provided for such initiatives. Gyan has been very kind. I mean, the way they facilitated everything, I think that's one of the best schemes I have seen in India. So many thanks to the Gyan team, and we will be live telecasting all these lectures. Many colleagues have come from different parts of India to participate. I must thank all of them. Thanks to all of the researchers here.